No. From Canada. Oh. He is your reigning, defending, three-time Olympia champion.
Get ready to hear the crowd
Chris
go wild.
Bumstead.
He calls himself the standard.
Icon, a term reserved for some of society's most unique and distinguished individuals. People whose images and legacies become bigger than themselves, creating in the process a massive cult of celebrity that's larger than life. These people are few and far between. In the bodybuilding world, there are objectively two men who have had the substantial cultural impact that many icons do.
I have covered every city in America. I feel that you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't know how to sell it, and if you don't have anybody who can sell it for you or tell the public, it's a waste of time, the whole thing.
From Dallas, Texas, Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, I can hear the couple.
There you go. Okay, now.
Oh, I gotta take the pants off.
But in this niche sport of bodybuilding, breaking out into the mainstream became incredibly difficult, especially as the physiques became less and less appealing to the general public. Although there have been many other bodybuilders who have come along that you can deem as icons, none of them have had the widespread impact of Arnold. This is a story of the man who would.
Chris to me is everything that classic bodybuilding is supposed to be. It's a blend of muscularity, shape, refinement, an artistic, blend of muscle bellies.
Not to mention, it looks like he knows how to show it off, and that's a key element when you talk about classic physique, is the performance.
February 2nd, 1995, Burlington, Ontario, Canada. 5 years after their daughter Melissa was born, Jeff and Mary Bumstead welcomed their first son and second child into the world, Christopher Adam Bumstead. 2 years later, they decided to move to Ottawa due to its ideal environment for raising a family. Chris's father is an information officer in the city of Kingston, and his mother is a social worker. Growing up, Chris's parents had him build an athletic foundation very quickly by getting involved in multiple sports. By high school, he was playing football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. Although his parents put him in every sport, there were some that stuck and some that didn't. Track and field, basketball, and football were the sports that did. Chris particularly enjoyed track and field due to the individual aspect of him being accountable for his own success. Having become an athlete, Chris realized the need to get in the weight room and build muscle. Like most aspiring athletes, he started lifting freshman year of high school and began working on the foundation of his physique, going from 170 to 225, primarily adding that weight to his legs. At this point, Chris had spent 4 years in high school as a multiple sport athlete and came to the conclusion that he didn't have the skill to compete in his preferred sports at the highest level, which subsequently led him to rethinking his goals. Like many former high school athletes, Chris shifted all of his focus into training and maintaining the physique that he had built. It was also at this point that Chris would meet his sister's boyfriend, Ian Vaillere, who was an aspiring bodybuilder and, according to Chris, the biggest guy in Ottawa. Having formed a relationship and starting to bond, Ian saw how genetically gifted Chris was and became the influence he needed to consider taking bodybuilding more seriously. After graduating high school, Chris decided to take a gap year before going to college, and it was during this gap year that he spent more time learning about the science and pharmacology of bodybuilding under the tutelage of Ian. He also had to get accustomed to training like a bodybuilder rather than the strength training that he had focused on throughout high school. Having already been a fan of the sport and recently developing some confidence, Chris decided to take a chance on himself and compete in his first competition. In 2014, Chris and Melissa both competed at a regional show in Sudbury where they both won the overall, with Melissa dominating in figure and Chris in men's bodybuilding as a 19-year-old junior. That victory was the determining factor of the trajectory of Chris's career. Beating grown men at 19 years of age at his first show gave Chris tangible proof that he was truly special, and that was all the motivation that he needed. Combine that with the fact that he truly fell in love with the sport of bodybuilding that day, and you have the quintessential origin story for a bodybuilder.
Probably the trial run, where if I'd done bad, I probably might have never done it again.
Right.
But what happened is, I did amazing. I ended up winning the show, juniors and overall men's bodybuilding. My sister also won overall for women's figure, and it was just being on stage felt so amazing. It was one of those things where it just kind of felt right, and from there everything just kind of snowball effect just kept going.
Bodybuilding didn't instantly click for Chris, as the distractions in college interfered with his ability to fully embrace the bodybuilder lifestyle. Chris got in the habit of dialing it in only when he needed to prep for a show, and then losing discipline during the off-season. He didn't fully understand that he had to maintain that mentality year-round if he was going to maximize his potential. After his gap year, Chris enrolled at Dalhousie University in Halifax and majored in health sciences, a program that allowed students to eventually progress to a specific concentration in the field. But Chris would never make it that far. Chris had to take a semester off to stay home due to a condition that doctors could not identify at the time, but whatever Chris was dealing with caused him to hold on to a lot of water. He eventually recovered, but now Chris was at a crossroads and had to decide whether or not he would commit to pursuing greatness in bodybuilding and whether he was willing to make the sacrifices necessary to achieve the greatness he knew he could achieve. Chris chose bodybuilding, and although he doesn't regret going to college and states that the experience and relationships he's built was worth the time, it just wasn't his path. So no more parties, no more socializing, no more delaying his dreams. Everything he was going to do would be done with one thought in mind, being Mr. Olympia. And with that decision, the legend of cbum was born.
I'm excited to see how they both do tomorrow. It'd be pretty crazy if we all got to step on that Olympia stage together. I mean, knock on wood, not jinxing anything, but it's not the last show of the year either. It'd be pretty crazy to have the three of us, the trio, the family, all competing up there. It'd be pretty crazy.
In July of 2015, Chris placed first in the junior heavyweight division at the CBBF National Bodybuilding Championships and came back 1 year later and placed second in the open heavyweight division, losing to Khalid Chakui.
What was the best placing you got in bodybuilding?
I got second.
Oh, you got second?
Second in heavyweight against Khalid Chakui.
Who's that? I don't even know who that is.
1 year later, in August of 2016, Chris transitioned over to the big leagues and earned his IFBB Pro card at the 2016 North American Championships, where he placed first in the heavyweight division and third in the overall in a lineup that saw Justin Rodriguez win the whole show. In March of 2017 at the Arnold Classic, Chris was in attendance. At this show, he met former Bikini Olympia champion Courtney King. Courtney was competing in what would be her final bikini competition, where she took second place, but it wasn't just another medal she got. She also got Chris's attention. 2 months later, Chris decided to make his pro debut at the 2017 Toronto Pro in the 1-year-old classic physique division, where he took first place. A victory which immediately established him as one of the most promising classic physique athletes in the rising division.
A lot of guys see you as the future of the division, and you know, the youth obviously helps.
Yeah, of course.
Do you get a lot of guys, you know, contacting you, wanting to express how happy they are that someone young is taking over this division?
I really do. It's amazing the support I get, especially from people my age, because there's so many young, it's such a building industry, it's building so much, so many young people getting into it. The amount of support I get from people my age, even older, as this new division comes out, it really means a lot to me.
This would be showcased at the 2017 Mr. Olympia in September, which was the second Olympia with the classic physique division. MHP Supplements signed Chris and decided to support him on this journey. Chris brought a fantastic package, one which the entire bodybuilding world got to be exposed to, a package which officially put Chris on everyone's radar. The 2017 Olympia, Chris stunned everyone not just in the individual routines, but in the comparisons as well due to how much he stood out. He towered over the rest of that lineup and clearly brought a physique that was strongly reminiscent of the golden era. Despite his package, he wouldn't be crowned the new Mr. Olympia. That would go to Breon Ainsley. Now at this point, Chris was quickly building a massive social media following due to his combination of size, aesthetics, and not to mention his movie star good looks. But all of those things aside, what got people gravitating towards Chris was his wholesome personality. Conventional wisdom would say that someone with a physique as big as his would have the personality to match it. But Chris was down to earth, low-key, and appeared to be very humble.
The amount of people I had come up to me and just like look at me and be like, literally that. 30 seconds, didn't say a word, just stare into my eyes and blank, draw blank. So please, think of what you're gonna say. I feel like it's just as awkward as you do. And I don't like being that uncomfortable that many times in one day.
Chris recalls a special moment at his first Olympia when his parents stood in the line with the rest of the fans to get his autograph at his booth. A gesture that meant the world to him and highlighted how the unending support of his parents led to him becoming the man he is today. Chris even cites Jay Cutler, Ian, and his father as his greatest inspirations in life. The growing buzz of his name in the industry, combined with his authenticity and likability, generated an evolving group of people who were beginning to idolize him. He appeared to be this ideal representation of what strong male values look like, similar to the guy that Tony Soprano is always talking about,
Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type.
After placing second at the 2017 Olympia, Chris took the rest of the year to prep for 2018. He signed with his first apparel sponsor when he signed with Jed North Apparel, and nabbed another supplement sponsor when he signed with Jack Factory. Now, during his prep for the 2018 Mr. Olympia, everything was going according to plan until 4 weeks out. 4 weeks out from the Olympia, the water retention that Chris had dealt with in college came back after he had gotten home from the water park. After having hydrated thoroughly that night, Chris woke up the next day 15 pounds heavier. Knowing something was terribly wrong, Chris immediately went to the hospital where he was hospitalized for a week, losing out on 6 days of progress. It was a bodybuilder's worst nightmare. Add to that the fact that Chris was just a few weeks away from the Olympia, and you have a situation that would cause many competitors to pull out of the show. Not Chris though. The doctors put Chris on diuretics and sucked out as much water from his body as possible, primarily in his lower body because that's where a lot of it would concentrate to. After a 6-day recovery period, doctors ran more tests to determine what Chris was dealing with. In the meantime, Chris and Ian were trying their best to get Chris as dry as possible and essentially hope his physique would come together. And it was. The day before flying out to Vegas for the 2018 Mr. Olympia, Chris got his results from the doctors who told him that he had a disease known as IgA nephropathy, or Buerger's disease. According to the Mayo Clinic, Buerger's disease is a kidney disease that occurs when an antibody called immunoglobulin A builds in your kidneys. This results in local inflammation that over time can hamper your kidney's ability to filter waste from your blood. Specifically, the disease attacks a set of blood vessels in the kidneys called glomeruli that filters that waste, which was causing Chris's extreme water retention. Having finally figured out that he had this disease, Chris could move forward and plan accordingly. Unfortunately, there is no current cure for Buerger's disease, just medications that can slow its effects.
I walked into that doctor's office terrified. Obviously, it was 5 days before my flight to Vegas. I didn't know if I'd be able to get on that flight. I didn't know if I'd be competing at the Olympia. I didn't know if I'd be bodybuilding ever again, because I literally didn't know what I was expecting to hear.
On a more positive note, 11 days out from the Olympia, Chris announced via his Instagram that he had started a sponsorship with UK giant Gymshark, the biggest athleisure brand in the world. This sponsorship was massive for Chris's brand awareness and overall career, as he was exposed to Gymshark's massive customer base. The diagnosis out of the way and the biggest sponsorship of his career signed, Chris set his sights on his new foe, Breon Ainsley. At the 2018 Olympia, Chris brought a slightly improved package from 2017, which according to Chris was not his best. Chris and Ian had done a good job of shedding the water Chris was holding onto, but there was just a little bit of water that was left. Despite this, Chris held his own and was brought backstage with Breon, which meant that he had placed top 2. And after having realized his top 2 placing, Chris went backstage and shared an emotional moment with his family, because for them to have gone through everything they went through and Chris still get into a top spot was more than they could have hoped for.
Literally in the hospital months before doing the Olympia, so it was just overwhelming joy because we knew what he had gone through to get there.
Despite being a consummate competitor and wanting to win, Chris felt that his late prep disaster was the nail in the coffin for a top 5 placing, let alone a possible win. But he prevailed and realized that if he could have that kind of setback and still get a top spot, what could he do next year? Despite coming close, Chris took second place to Breon Ainsley for a second consecutive year, as the reigning champ came in razor sharp once again. About 1 week after the 2018 Mr. Olympia, Chris took to his YouTube channel to have an open and honest conversation about his diagnosis to the fans. A tough conversation which saw him bare his heart and soul as he was overcome with emotion about the situation. Something which many wouldn't expect from a guy of his status, but could admire due to the emotional maturity required to be so open and vulnerable to hundreds of thousands of people.
Honestly, the scariest part of almost all of this was prejudging. I normally walk on stage, at least lately, with kind of a swagger and a confidence, and I was backstage pumping up, looking at myself. I tried to hit an ab inside in the mirror, and I just knew I didn't look crisp like I normally did. I didn't look how I had envisioned myself being able to look this prep, because I had made a lot of improvements over the year, and I was just excited to show it, but I knew I wasn't there. So when I stepped on stage, I was terrified. I go up there and I remember hitting one pose and then turning to do a side chest, and my legs were shaking like this. They did our first comparisons and they brought me and Breon back to the back of the stage, which essentially they always do for the top 2. And I'm not gonna lie to you, at that moment right there, I was done. I was I had already won in my mind. I'm crying forever, and now I can't even talk on this goddamn camera.
This only strengthened Chris's connection to his fans and made him a lot of new ones. Another connection that was strengthened was the connection between him and his love interest Courtney King. See, right after his 2018 runner-up performance, Courtney slid in Chris's DMs on Instagram, but having been overwhelmed by tons of messages, he ignored it for a while. This was until things calmed down and he realized that her initiative to make the first move was very impressive. So they took things a step further, and she flew to Canada so they can properly meet, and their love would take off from there. Now, at this point in the classic physique scene, people were starting to talk because the division was growing fast and the fans who supported it were also growing just as quickly. And there became this sentiment that cbum was getting robbed at the Olympia because he looked more classic than Breon did. Chris got a lot of Arnold comparisons, whereas Breon wasn't necessarily compared to any specific Golden Era pro, and those Arnold comparisons became very rampant. Combine that with the fact that Chris had a significantly larger following than Breon, and the bodybuilding masses were starting to wonder why Chris was being overlooked. He had that gnarly vacuum, which was a staple of the Golden Era and had some of the craziest proportions for his size on stage. Well, the simple answer as to why the judges were overlooking him was the judging criteria. For the first 3 years of the classic physique division, athletes were judged as if they were smaller, less important bodybuilders. They wore trunks that looked like boxer briefs, and they were asked to hit less poses. Essentially, they were judged as if they were smaller bodybuilders, considering a lot of them were transfers from other divisions. Classic physique judging criteria was not very clear nor concrete, and the division was kind of seen as bodybuilding light, which was acceptable at the time given the novelty of the division. But heading into the 2019 Olympia, some of that would change because classic physique's growth had been monumental, with fans and analysts starting to take it more seriously, which in turn caused the judges to take it more seriously as well. This year, the IFBB changed the trunk requirement, allowing athletes to show more glute and V-taper, which accentuated their classic looks. So the 2019 Olympia was set to be the most exciting one for the classic physique division yet, and people were wondering what would it take for cbum to finally win.
I'm just like cold and my bones are cracking right now. I feel really awkward. Chest looks crazy.
His chest is so full and like striated looking.
Whoa, nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so much better than when I even saw him last.
Right.
Holy shit.
Look at his hamstring, like up on the left.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Big difference from last year.
Oh my god, yeah.
During the press conference, Chris stated that he would be bringing something that the division hadn't seen yet, but every athlete makes that claim.
We put our bodies through a lot, and it's often very difficult. If you don't know my story, that's probably good because I was crying all over the internet last year. But I mean, this year I've been so grateful to have an amazing team at my back. I've been healthy, my prep's gone smooth. It's been a completely different year, and what I went through last year really kind of showed a new mental tenacity in me that I didn't think I had. So this year I'm really excited just to kind of show off a brand new look and bring something that's never been seen before.
There was this growing sentiment that 2019 would be Chris's year. Chris came out in 2019 with a new look, specifically a mustache, something that not only became a defining characteristic of his stage look, but unintentionally popularized that look not just within classic physique, but the entire fitness community as a whole. During prejudging, it was clear that it would be Chris and Breon at 1 and 2 once again, but the decision was not at all clear because Breon Ainsley again would come much improved from the previous year. Taking down an improved champion is extremely difficult in the sport of bodybuilding, but if there was anybody that could do it, it was Chris. Despite coming in slightly improved from 2018, Chris still lost to Breon in the critical back double bicep, but dominated in the front poses while the side poses were relatively close. When it was all done and decided, Chris would dethrone Breon Ainsley by 1 point, which is an accurate reflection of how close their physiques were that night.
The second place award, the check for $10,000, the Olympia silver medal to our runner-up this evening, Breon Ainsley.
Oh my goodness.
We have a new champion.
And I can hear the crowd roaring from here.
And the title of 2019 Classic Olympia champion, Chris Bumstead.
And there it is.
There's been quite a rumble amongst the fans who it would be.
Chris had finally done it. The sacrifices he had made, the setbacks he had to overcome, the leap of faith that he took in himself to chase his dream had finally paid off, and he wanted the fans to know that it didn't come easy for him.
Chris Bumstead, classic physique Olympia champion. How does that sound?
Sounds goddamn good. Feels good to hear it. I'm ready. I was ready for it this year. It's my first year. I knew I needed to hear it, and we worked for it. Got it.
Give us quick thoughts.
I mean, it's hard to put into words right now. I mean, like Chris stated, I mean, how much has gone into this. I mean, knowing from our back end, I know how much he's had to overcome to get to where he's been. And, it just makes that victory so much more sweet, right? I mean, to be here and to, knock off a really good Brayon, I mean, it makes it just, one of those victories that just you only dream of, right? So, I mean, it's, and to share this, with our family, Chris being obviously my brother-in-law, it's just that much more meaningful too. So, couldn't ask for more than that.
Now, not everyone was pleased with the decision, most notably Brion's coach Chris Cormier. Nonetheless, it was a decision that many fans could respect. Dethroning a reigning champ who comes back improved is no easy task, and Chris did that, due in part to the judges strongly believing that his physique and likeness would push the classic physique division to heights we couldn't predict. And in a way, they weren't just believing in Chris, but they were investing in him, and boy would that investment pay off. It's 2020, and the legend of cbum has been growing rapidly, with the fan pages becoming more and more prevalent as there was a growing admiration for his physique, and all eyes were on him now. Despite being the new champ, Chris probably didn't feel like it because he still had a lot to prove. His back had not seen the significant improvement that the fans were expecting since his first Olympia appearance. In fact, Chris had been showing marginal improvement over the years. With Chris having a weight cap of 230 and the sentiment that he was a champion with lagging body parts, the pressure was on during the offseason.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go here because this is my damn channel.
You do whatever you want.
Okay, I'm gonna go here.
Yeah.
So, there should never be a Mr. Olympia that lacks anywhere. You should never call a Mr. Olympia that lacks in body parts anywhere.
I respect.
Every Mr. Olympia should have a complete, balanced physique and not lack body parts. I'm gonna go there.
Chris had heard the criticism, he heard the hate, and he and Ian got to work. People who followed Chris's prep into the 2020 Olympia saw that he wasn't prepping like a champion, he was prepping like an underdog. Like a dog without a bone. Like he was trying to become champion rather than repeat. A mentality that fueled the massive improvements he made heading into the 2020 Olympia. Chris, understanding that he was a reigning champ, also understood that he needed to do everything he could to prioritize his health. Despite his love for bodybuilding, he also wanted to live a fulfilling and healthy life outside of the sport. Which is why after consulting his physician, Chris began looking for supplements that could help him optimize his health, which is how he stumbled upon Revive MD. Revive MD is a health and wellness company founded by Matt Jansen and Dr. Dominic Icavone, two well-respected people in the bodybuilding and health and wellness space. With their products and brand mission aligning with Chris's needs, he started using their products and very quickly fell in love with the brand and what they were doing in the industry. So, due to mutual interests, Chris became a sponsored Revive athlete, bringing their brand and products to his millions of fans.
We did consult, I don't know if consult is the right word, but I'll just use it for the sake of discussion, with Chris Bumstead, who's one of our athletes, about this product, because Chris is somebody that by action and not just by spoken word truly does care about his health within the goals that he has. So we wanted to kind of bring a product out that would help support him throughout his phases of competition.
With the off-season underway, Chris and Ian placed a tremendous focus on building up Chris's back and biceps, the two areas he was weakest in, and boy was it showing.
I've been feeling really good. I've been feeling exceptional, and more importantly, I've been feeling excited and confident and calm. And just that word excitement is a very powerful word for me, because it's a word I haven't felt and related to competing in 3 years now.
Every physique update heading into the show showed a much bigger and improved cbum, a cbum who, if he could win from the back, would become virtually unbeatable. In 2019, Chris promised that he would bring something the division had never seen, and to a certain extent, he did that. However, in 2020, Chris reminded people that he had promised to set the standard of what classic physique should be, and that he plans to stay true to that claim.
When I came in last year and you asked me this similar question, I told you classic physique hadn't found someone who had set the standard of what it was meant to look like. And that was my goal last year. I wanted to come in And I believe because it was such a new division, it was still searching for someone to be at the top, someone for the young kids coming up that they wanted to strive towards that standard classic physique look. I showed that last year, and I was young, and I was not complete, I was not 100%. This year I'm going to show an improved version of that, next year an improved version of that, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys what the standard of classic physique is, and what's going to be in the future, and I'm going to set it.
This declaration would become one of the signature slogans of his brand identity, and something that added to the allure of watching him step out on stage.
But this year's been different. I haven't been shutting down my emotions and telling myself I shouldn't be feeling things and pushing shit down. I've been embracing it. When I feel fear, I feel it. I take a moment and I feel it. I let myself sink into it, and then I try and analyze it. I'm like, what are you actually afraid of?
On the morning of December 18th, 2020, the prejudging for Classic Physique took place. Everyone, including myself, stopped everything we were doing to sit and watch the live stream, eagerly awaiting cbum's appearance. During the initial comparisons, the first batch of competitors came out, and then the second batch, and then came Chris in the final one, and your eyes could not go anywhere else. Chris drew your attention immediately as he towered over the rest of the competition and displayed eye-popping proportions and muscularity. It was the same physique as the year before, but with more muscle and equal conditioning. And then it happened. Chris turned around from behind to hit a back double bicep and shocked everyone with how much wider and thicker his back had gotten. These comparisons showed little detail as the camera was zoomed out to capture all of the competitors on stage, but you couldn't help but wonder, did I just see what I think I saw? The fans would find out during the individual routines when Chris would come out alone, where we would get to see him up close, and for those of us who had gotten to see him in 2019, this was a different cbum. He maintained his beautiful lines, his beautiful shape, that signature vacuum, but he was thicker. And no moment would exemplify this more than when Chris turned around from behind and showed his back. And it was utterly jaw-dropping. To have made that kind of improvement in just 1 year was something most bodybuilders couldn't do in 3. His back wasn't just thicker and wider, but it was shredded. The potential that everyone thought Chris had was on full display, and it was evident that he had won before it even truly started, and he knew it. During the first call out, Chris was immediately moved to one of the top spots, next to, you guessed it, Breon Ainsley, who had come in bigger but not as sharp as 2019. However, even if he was as sharp, it wouldn't have mattered because Chris finally beat Breon from the back. Well, actually, he dominated him for the first time in his career. With Breon being the main contender and Terrence Ruffin being in the mix but not close, neither of them stood a shot at the title. It was Chris's to lose after prejudging, and he held strong.
Prejudging this morning, just locked in and focused and taking the day, and it couldn't have gone any better. I really don't think it could have gone any better. I woke up looking great this morning. Everything this week was perfect. The prep was just amazing. Backstage, I was just in the zone. I didn't see anyone else around me. I just felt like it was just me out there posing, trying to do my thing, being better than last year, and it felt right.
During the finals, Chris came back and put together his best posing routine thus far and cemented his victory in the final comparison while knocking off Breon for the second time. Breon would fall to third place while Terrence Ruffin would leapfrog him into second. Chris was officially a 2-time Classic Physique champion, and this one was indisputable.
Become better, learn that life happens for you and not to you, and just try and get better every damn day. Enjoy the process. Something I've learned to enjoy every second on the stage, underneath the lights. The entire journey leading up here for the past years, it's just been such a blessing, and I'm so grateful. And just so happy to be up here to hear you say hands still. That felt good to hear. I'm happy to.
Chris was slowly becoming bigger than the bodybuilding niche as a whole and reaching an even broader fitness audience. Gym bros, fangirls, and hardcore bodybuilding fans all knew the name cbum. Even if you weren't into the gym but could relate to Chris, you had likely become a fan.
The day I'm built like Chris Bumstead is the day it's over for you hoes. I don't know what it means by over, but that's kind of scary. I don't know if you're coming after them in what way, but if you're built like me one day, then I'm just worried that I'm going to be losing the Olympia. So hopefully the hoes are safe and I'm safe on the Olympia stage.
Despite all the fame and attention he was receiving, Chris stayed true to himself. He he remained the humble, down-to-earth champion who just enjoyed life and doing what he loved. There became very little doubt that if you took away the fame, he would still be competing.
Do you like it? What do you guys think? Should I keep it? Does it look good? You don't like it? No! God. I think I could rock a what is this called?
I don't know, a biker's beard?
I'm sorry if you have that. That's ugly.
If you have it, you're a fucking beauty, and I respect the shit of you. And we're gonna go right.
The division as a whole just kept growing, with the competition chasing Chris, a feat that seemed insurmountable. It was back to business for Chris and Ian heading into the 2021 Olympia, but cbum's dominance had the effect that most dominant forces have: improved competition. There were some young names buzzing throughout the industry that many thought could make the next Olympia at least very interesting, but the anticipation, although great, was not as high as in previous years. Chris was head and shoulders above the rest of the division, and as long as he didn't get complacent, he could dominate for the foreseeable future. On the business end, Chris was continuing to grow his cbum Fitness website with a small collection of merch that was selling out very quickly, with his Thabbage t-shirts being the hottest selling item on his website due to the word making light of Chris's pronounced lisp, another characteristic about him that humanizes his larger-than-life image. He was also continuing to grow his cbum Fitness app, which allowed you to follow Chris's workout program and had functionality to track your progress. 1 month out from the show, Chris announced that he and Jack's Factory were parting ways after 2 years of working together. At the time, they had just released the cbum series, which would remain intact after his departure. But the most interesting part about his departure was that Chris was not leaving with the intention of signing a contract or being an athlete for another brand, implying that he was going to be going into his own venture, something which made sense given the magnitude of his name and his personal brand.
I am going to be leaving Jack Factory. I will no longer be sponsored athlete by Jack Factory, and it's a tough decision I had to make. I didn't think this was going to happen, at least not for years to come, because I've had such a great relationship with them. The people, the products, everything is something I stand behind and absolutely love. But a new opportunity came by my way, and it was just something I really have been working towards forever. And I'm not going to talk about what that opportunity is this video, that's going to be for the next video, but I'm leaving Jack Factory. I'm not going to another supplement company to be another athlete. I'm done with contracts, no more athletes. Something new is coming, and I'm going to explain it. You guys probably can get a good guess, but that's what's happening.
2021 was going according to plan for Chris and the classic physique division as a whole in every aspect. The cult of cbum was growing, his image and likeness was continuing to reach a broader audience, and he was on track to bring another great package to the 2021 Olympia. However, Chris would face another obstacle, this time not with his health, but with his personal life.
Top fitness influencer arrested after being caught with package of illegal steroids, police say.
Who bodybuilds out there who uses anabolics. And I know most, for the people watching the show, it's probably a very large percentage. This could have happened to anyone who used it.
Honestly, this is crazy. I never thought in a million years I'd be reporting on this.
Chris's sister Melissa was arrested in Palm City, Florida on September 11th, approximately 4 weeks out from the 2021 Mr. Olympia. She was arrested under the suspicion of receiving 6 different steroids to the mail and faced 6 counts of possession of a controlled substance without a valid prescription. Here's a snippet of the events from CBS 12 who broke the news. According to the arrest report, agents with Customs and Border Protection seized the package mailed from Canada and destined for Palm City at a facility in Memphis on September 1st. The manifest for the package said it contained vitamins, massage oil, and a t-shirt. A search of the package, however, revealed multiple vials in packages of a factory-sealed and labeled steroids and other medication. Homeland Security investigations became involved and worked with the Martin County Sheriff's Office to set up a controlled delivery to a home in Palm City where Bumstead lived. On Friday, September 1st, the Sheriff's Office said Bumstead opened the package after a detective delivered it to her home. Minutes later, investigators served a warrant to search the home. According to the arrest report, deputies recovered the controlled substances, which included testosterone propionate, drostanolone propionate, trenbolone acetate, oxandrolone, mesterolone, and stanzolol. This was an event which took over bodybuilding news headlines and surely put a microscope on Chris, as he was never associated with any kind of bad press. However, by virtue of his sister, his name would naturally become involved.
Package just to be in her name, she's the one who opened it, and it's most likely for her significant other, either Ian or, on the other hand, her brother, Chris Bumstead.
There was a package mailed by them to themselves from Canada to the U.S. It was a very dumb move.
Extra agent, which Christopher Bumstead, that's the name of Melissa Bumstead's brother, according to social media information in the arrest affidavit. Oh, because they got Chris now in there.
The Bumstead family stayed relatively quiet on the matter, especially seeing as Chris was set to compete in a few weeks. Melissa was set to appear in drug court, where she was required to complete some sort of court-supervised program, but what she was required to do has never been revealed to the public. Now, despite this bump in Chris's personal life, he still had a job to complete. The mystery venture would be revealed 8 days out from the Olympia when Chris announced that he was going to become a new partner in the Raw Nutrition ownership team, joining Dominic and Matt as co-owners. Raw Nutrition is the supplement branch of Raw and Revive, with the Revive portion being Dominic's medical practice.
Come in as a fan, a customer, and now an owner, and bring that all together and really find a unique way to give back to the people. When I first came down to Florida and I met the team and I saw everything that went in behind Get Raw Nutrition Supplement Company, it felt like so much more than a company. It felt like a culture. It felt like a team and a family trying to build something bigger than just selling supplements. And it was something I immediately felt like I wanted to be a part of. So when the opportunity came on to be not only be a part of it, but to come on as a partner, it's a huge transition of my life where I'm kind of stepping out of the shadows now, where I'm no longer being told what to do, but I'm making the decisions myself.
Now, the 2021 Olympia was right around the corner, and cbum was looking like he would repeat. There was no reason to believe that he would regress, especially given his track record of coming in sharp every year.
And I had these thoughts before leading up to that, being like, do I even love bodybuilding anymore? Do I want to do this forever? This causes me so much stress. It's so difficult. I'm already so successful in business and my following and your guys' support. I know you'll still be there whether or not I'm competing. Am I still doing this for me for the right reasons? Do I still love this?
October 8th, 2021. With another year of anticipation over, the fans would get to see Chris attempt to three-peat and undeniably cement himself as the classic physique GOAT, something which a lot of people already believed him to be, but could be argued considering him and Breon were tied with Olympias, but that wouldn't be for long. During the initial comparisons, Chris came out to what looked to be a stacked lineup of classic athletes, easily the most stacked the division had seen up until that point. He made some more moderate improvements to his package from 2020, which was perfectly fine considering how much better he was than everyone else. He didn't necessarily need to be bigger or even that much more conditioned. He just had to come back the same. As the first callouts were announced, Chris's name was announced along with the usual suspects, Terrence Ruffin and Breon Ainsley. But there were two up-and-comers who were flying under the radar that stood in that callout with Chris: Urs Kalsinski and Ramon Dino. German-born Urs Kalsinski had a shape and structure very similar to Chris's, he just lacked the mass. The Brazilian-born Ramon Dino, however, was a different story. Although he was rough around the edges, the kid had mass, more mass than most Olympia rookies step on stage with. He got the chance to stand next to the champ, and although he held his own, he wasn't going to win. But boy, did he scream potential. Instead, he would take 5th. Urs would take 4th, Breon would take 3rd, and for his second consecutive year, Terrence Ruffin would place 2nd place. And at the end of the night, after another impressive finals appearance, the fans would hear the words and 3-time Olympia champion.
3-time
All right.
Bumstead.
But this morning after prejudging, I had that same cry in the bathroom, but this one was a cry of gratitude and pride that I had pushed through and gotten through that. And it's these moments, it's this journey, and like I felt this before having the trophy around my neck. It's the journey, it's the experience, it's knowing that you pushed past times where you wanted to quit. And you got shit done. You pushed through it. So to everyone out there whose dreams are scaring you, whose dreams make you want to quit, just don't quit. It's good. Your dreams should be big, they should be scary. Just keep pushing through. I have this thing I say, champion mentality. It's not about winning, it's not about a trophy, it's about having no quit. It's about giving everything you have so that when you show up on game day, before the results are over, you're proud of yourself and you know the work you put in.
Chris would chuck up the 3 with the first place medal around his neck and walk away that night as a 3-time champion and uncontested classic physique GOAT. If there was any moment that truly shone a light on Chris's impact on the division, it was the 2021 Olympia. The caliber of competition was something early fans of the division could appreciate because of how far it came, and a major part of that was due to Chris. It's no secret that once-in-a-generation athletes automatically make everyone chasing them better, and the quality of new competition, combined with the improvements of established ones who were just trying to have a shot at Chris, was proof that he was the new standard and maybe even better, just like he said he would be.
How has your autoimmune disease changed you as a person? I would say it made me a lot more health conscious, a lot more conscious in general, instead of just like, it made me more aware of death too, because I honestly thought I was going to die when I first got really sick, or it's something really bad was going to happen. My life was over as I knew it, so it kind of gave me a new appreciation for that, and it really made me more like everyone makes fun of me here. I don't like eating in a plastic. I try to only drink filtered water. My food is like more organic. I really don't eat sugar. I just like try to be a lot more healthy now, and I'm also not like worried, stressed about it. I'm just doing it because it's good for me. So it's helped me in a lot of ways, but it's a big one.
After the 2021 Olympia, the cult of cbum had grown to be massive, over 9 million people to be exact on his Instagram. Chris's name and image was casting a wider net than ever, and his influence could be found all over TikTok and Instagram, with seemingly every aspiring young bodybuilder wanting to emulate him. But that's what comes with being in the standard.
I literally saw guys that had the same mustache as him. If you've got a mustache because Chris has got one, could you raise your hand? There you go, right there. He's got the hair, there you go. So I'm definitely seeing clones of you out there right now. So
it's pretty wild, yeah. Some of my friends tell me I should just do some, I mean, honestly, people tell me I should do some crazy shit and see who else will do it. And the mullet was one of those things. And I look around and I see a lot of guys with mustaches and mullets, so.
Savage and Set the Standard t-shirts were selling out on every new drop on his website, and Chris was slowly reaching heights that no other modern bodybuilder was reaching, regardless of the division. Chris's stock had just hit another level. This fandom, although genuine, had ended up evolving to an almost extreme place where his younger male fans would call him Daddy?
If you ever need motivation, just look at Daddy cbum working out. Apparently I'm just Daddy now, so my role model growing up was my dad, so if you guys want to call me Daddy and that's your motivation, I'll take it. Just as long as there's no like weird enunciations of Daddy where you're just looking at me in the wrong way, but appreciate the love.
But after a certain amount of time, it became very clear that a lot of this was just trolling. Well, most of it.
But in person, when a grown man comes up to me, looks me in the eyes and says,
"Hi, Daddy,"
there's nothing weirder. It is really uncomfortable and super weird, especially when this guy's girlfriend is right beside him and he's coming up and calling me Daddy. I'm like, this is just weird, and I get uncomfortable and I laugh and I don't know what to say, and then we move on and I'm just like, all right, let's take a picture and go. Come on.
After the 2021 Olympia, Chris announced that he was parting ways with Gymshark after 4 years of being signed to the brand. Another move which all but confirmed that Chris was going to be doing his own thing, which he made clear in the line where he wrote, "I am excited for the next steps to pursue my personal endeavors and build my own legacy." With his growing responsibilities over at Raw Nutrition and the growth of his own merch line, Chris had reached a place where it was time to shift more focus to growing his empire. In 2022, Chris had a seemingly brief affiliate deal with growing LA athleisure company Young LA, which helped propel the brand to major heights in 2022. Chris stood at the top of the entire bodybuilding world watching his legend grow, but he still wasn't satisfied. As many bodybuilding fans sat from the comforts of their living rooms to watch the 2022 Arnold Classic, Chris was in attendance meeting fans and watching his competition battle it out. In fact, 4 competitors out of that top 5 from the 2020 Olympia competed at the Arnold Classic, minus him of course. What Chris bared witness to was Terrence Ruffin bringing his best package ever and winning, Ramon Dino making a massive leap and taking second, followed by Urs and Brian taking third and fourth respectively. If it wasn't already clear to Chris that the fresh blood of Classic was quickly improving, it was after the Arnold. But what also happened at the Arnold that was equally interesting was Chris's interview and Q&A with Hani Rambod. See, Chris and Hani sat down for an interview that would go on Hani's YouTube channel, and in that interview, Hani went on to see whether or not Chris was going to entertain the possibility of jumping into open bodybuilding.
And I don't know, maybe one time before I retire, I won't prep for it.
Uh-oh, did you hear that right now, guys?
It might happen.
Do you think Chris should eventually compete as an open bodybuilder? I actually think you would I think you would actually do really well at open bodybuilding. But you do think you're going to do it at least once?
Yeah, I know you're pulling this out of me, but it's still a maybe.
I don't know.
Chris also went on to explain why he rocks a mustache and what it represents to him.
And it was kind of like my good luck charm / like sign of like confidence, of like belief in myself and knowing that I got it. So now every year I rock the mustache.
So the mustache is definitely coming back this year?
It's here to stay, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, despite Terrence Ruffin winning, the talk of the show was Ramon Dino, mainly because many expected Terrence to win, but Ramon placing second was something that surprised a lot of people, probably except for the Brazilians. This wasn't because Ramon wasn't expected to improve, rather his improvement was so great within a short period of time that his hype train started moving significantly quicker than it already was. People started to look past Terrence and right at Ramon as the only classic competitor that had any shot at dethroning Chris, mainly due to his size, stature, and rate of improvement. Now, this very notion sparked a ton of debate between Chris and Dino fans, but at the very least created something interesting for the fans to talk about heading into the 2022 Olympia. Chris was still a heavy favorite as usual, but like a true champion, refused to get complacent. Now, at this point in the cbum story, he had been coached by Ian to 3 Olympia titles, but the entire time that Chris was dominating, Ian was also rising up the ranks in his own bodybuilding career. So when Ian appeared on a live episode of Fouad Abiad's Real Bodybuilding podcast and alluded to the possibility that Chris would work with another coach, the word got out and had people asking a ton of questions. Particularly when fans from the event reported to Nick Trigili that Ian had confirmed that that would be the case.
I have a live audience of multiple people, wives as well that were there, wives that were there with their husbands, verifying this was said. Now they recorded it. They recorded the podcast. All those people told me the same thing, that Fouad asked Ian, do we have to edit this out? Now we're gonna see if it's edited out, if they ever post this live podcast, which I think they're going to. So we're gonna see what was said, unless they just cut it all out. And we'll know when there's a cut. But even in those text messages, when those people texted me, they told me that they shut it down really quick and moved on to the next subject. It wasn't like a continuous conversation.
Nick, of course, made a video about the potential change in coaches that got the attention of Chris and Ian, which is significant, because very few people can get the attention of Chris. Ian, on the other hand, well, he's very opinionated, and he let it be known that Nick may have been given inaccurate information, while Chris also reiterated the same notion.
Chris Bumstead DM'd me. So now I'm like, okay, this is interesting. If Chris Bumstead's DMing me, my red light goes off in my head. I'm like, oh. Now if Chris Bumstead's taking the time to DM me with his 8 million followers, and he's worried about me making a story about him leaving Ian for Hani to coach him, something's up. Because I've done a million videos on Chris Bumstead and he's never DM'd me. Text message. Just a heads up, I have never spoken to Hani about coaching me. He spells Hani wrong, but that's fine. It wasn't a conversation of full coaching relationship with him. So if you're gonna claim to be accurate, you're not in this case. Oh no, but it's your video. If you wanna post incorrect info, that probably won't play out as you're displayed in your video. I would change it. Your choice though.
3 months after the speculation ran rampant, Chris and Ian would make an official announcement via Chris's YouTube channel confirming the coaching change and the reasons behind it.
Surprise. Me and Ian will not be working together this year as a coach-client relationship. It wasn't an easy decision for either of us, absolutely. And like, I want to put like emphasis on like, first of all, my gratitude for what we've done, but second, like, it's hard to coach someone. It's almost more stressful for a coach sometimes because you take on the stress and the responsibility of telling them what to do so they don't have to think. And to imagine doing that while also being the competitor at the Olympia as like a priority, equal priority, but like something very important to you, and climbing up the ranks in the open bodybuilding in that fucking Olympia and qualifying and also coaching a 3-time Mr. Olympia is like crazy.
Covered it there. I mean, after last year, it was tough on both of us. I mean, obviously, the mental strain of me, trying to tend to Chris in what I know he needs to be the best athlete possible, to defend his Olympia titles and to continue to improve every year. It's not just winning Olympias. Winning Olympias is great, but you want more than that. And I know Chris wants more than that. And where I'm at in my career and trying to battle for, first call outs and that, coaching, I'm not a career coach, I'm Chris's brother, but that's a priority to me over coaching any day.
Given the trajectory of both men's career, this move did make sense. 3 days after the announcement that Chris would be switching coaches, he revealed in another YouTube video who this new coach would be. And it was none other than Hani Rambod.
Alright, so, secret's out. Honestly, you can't even call it a secret.
It's not a secret.
It's not a secret.
No.
It didn't even try and keep it a secret, but
not at all.
Sometimes people forget, like you make decisions and you just like feel it out, you live your life, and then the world's talking about it, like, why are you hiding this? And it's just like, I'm just living my life, But yeah, so as you guys know, video before this, I guess, would be, sadly, me and Ian are no longer working together, but the exciting news is, me and Hani are working together now.
Hani, having the resume he has and being known for coaching champions, made his pairing with Chris a logical choice, especially given his reported ability to manage his athletes' mental health with care, something that Chris definitely valued on top of his coaching prowess. Chris working with Hani wasn't just a decision meant to propel his career forward, but to bury the competition in any notion that Ramon or anybody else in that division would even come close to him. The best athlete in the game combined with the best coach in the game makes for a theoretically unbeatable duo, but we'd have to wait and see whether that would materialize on stage. Proactive decisions like this are what keep reigning champions dominating for a long time, and it was clear now more than ever that Chris was planning on dominating until he retired. And it was also clear that Chris possibly had some more potential to be unlocked. And thus, the 2022 Mr. Olympia was upon us, and it seemed crazy to think that Chris was going to be going for his 4th Olympia title already, because it seemed like yesterday he had won his first. With Chris keeping his physique relatively quiet heading into the show, there was this unshakable air of confidence and focus, which is safe to assume he had due to knowing something that the fans didn't: his improvement. In October of 2022, 2 months out from the Olympia, Chris announced via his Instagram that he was officially engaged to his longtime girlfriend Courtney King after 4 years of dating. The woman who had been his rock and his staunchest supporter since before his meteoric rise to fame, the woman who struggled with him through his lows and celebrated with him during his highs, had agreed to be his wife. Truly a pivotal moment in the foundation of Chris's future.
She's been so understanding this prep, so I've been really grateful that she's been so good. But I started being a little irritable with her, and this is usually how I know I'm suppressing stuff. And we were talking one morning, and I was kind of getting after her, and I was going to her, I'm like, what's wrong? Why are you so bothered? And she's like, you just haven't been like yourself, blah, blah, like, is something wrong? She was talking to me, and out of nowhere, I just started like bawling my eyes out. We were in the bathroom at my house here, and I was just crying, like.
As the show drew closer, other camps in the division were creating more and more hype for themselves by posting some last-minute updates for the fans, which at the very least kept things exciting. Urs Kalzinski was looking fantastic, Breon Ainsley promised to bring his best classic look ever, and it looked like he was going to do that, and Ramon Dino had clearly made some tremendous improvements to some of his weak points. But wasn't enough to actually push Chris?
This year too has been different because my mind's in a really good place, and I know that because there's so much like noise and talk and shit going on about me now. Like, I've won 3 times in a row, so people want to see me with failures and like shortcomings and falling.
As the prejudging went on, there were some changes within the top 5, as 2-time runner-up Terrence Ruffin was not in a top spot, having been moved to the outside. Mike Sommerfeld seemed to crack the top 6, an improvement from his previous placing. Breon Ainsley appeared to be either 4th or 5th. Urs Kalzinski was also in the mix right there with him, showcasing that beautiful shape that he's quickly becoming known for. And as has been the case at every Olympia of his career, Chris once again and unsurprisingly was in a top 2 spot, but this time with Ramon Dino. Steve Weinberger isolated the two in their own call-out, cementing Chris and Ramon as our 1st and 2nd placers. Going post for pose and entertaining the fans in the process, the two put on a show that'll probably go down as the most entertaining head-to-head in the history of the division thus far. Despite Ramon bringing a strong package, it was clear who the favorite was heading into the finals. With fans waiting in anticipation and some hoping for a potential upset, the finals would roll around and Chris would come out with his polished posing routine that we've come to expect and the confidence he always carries with him into the finals. When it was all said and done, the judges didn't need too many more rounds of confirmation because it was pretty clear that Chris was very much still the standard, because as impressive as Ramon and the rest of that lineup were, there hasn't been and currently isn't a single athlete in the division with the combination of size, shape, and proportion as perfect as Chris's. So once again, for the 4th time in a row, the legend of cbum, daddy, the standard, or whatever else you want to call him, would grow, as Bob Ciccarello would say the words "and still" once more.
And still,
there we
classic
go.
physique champ, 4-time Olympian Chris Bumstead.
All right. It's been a beautiful year for me, to say the least. There's been a lot of talk of my retirement for whatever reason. Not retiring. Don't worry, guys. I'm not going away. I'm here. I love what I'm doing. But I think it's really kind of beautiful that people thought that, because I think it shows that I'm learning to really enjoy the moment and the journey and be present in this, because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to kind of enjoy the moment, so they look back and realize what they just went through, and they're like, wow, that was like, I wish I'd been a little more present and enjoyed that a little bit more. And I think the fact people think I'm done is because I'm actually here enjoying it now, and it's a beautiful thing.
Now, despite being the megastar that he is, Chris was never and will never be above criticism. After all, he is a bodybuilder, and as is common with dominant forces in any industry, the higher you rise, the more scrutiny you'll get. And the knock on Chris after the 2022 Olympia was his bicep looking off. As fans analyzed the stage shots and Chris's physique from top to bottom, they noticed that Chris's left bicep looked smaller than his right one, something which got a lot of people talking. Wanting to be transparent and honest with the fans, Chris came out in an Instagram video to explain the reason for the disproportion in his biceps.
I tore my bicep. I don't know how it happened. Everyone's always like, did you feel it? Did it pop? What'd you do? I don't know how it happened. Next day, I felt a little bit more pain. It hurt when I was posing, and then I tried not to push it. Friday, it hurt a good amount, and I was trying not to pose too much. And normally I like to pose, especially when I'm carb loading and kind of like move the carbs through my body. And then that night, it was a little bit swollen. I was like, fuck, like just try not to think about this right now. Went to bed, woke up the next day, and it was a little bit more swollen. Obviously not that bad. It was as swollen as you guys see in the pictures. And then I get off, and I wasn't really in it fully. And I remember Hani even came up to me like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, smile up there, man. Like, you look crazy. You look great. Like, you're crushing it. Like, just be up there, smile, enjoy it. Like, this is what you worked for. And I was like, fuck, like, you're so right. Like, wash this shit into my brain. And I was able to kind of like get that out of there. And obviously cutting first call out and putting up there, I was like, yeah, I look good. And I have time backstage to process these things.
The cult of cbum has never been stronger, with Chris gaining over 400,000 followers in a single day after his Olympia win, and photos of his winning moments flooding all of social media. Chris's larger-than-life image would continue to expand. And it's going to inevitably propel Chris to opportunities that few bodybuilders have had since Arnold. But I don't think any of that truly matters to Chris. The humble Ottawa kid has always just wanted to chase his dream and do it in a way that was true to him. And he not only did that, but he inspired and influenced over 10 million people in the process. Take away the fame, the money, and the Olympia gold medals, and there's no doubt in my mind that cbum would still be that kid from Ottawa. Now, Chris has said in the past that he would be ready to call it quits after 3 or 4 Olympias if possible. But these sentiments were likely expressed before Chris truly knew what he had in him.
Olympia-wise, if I could get like 3 or 4, I'd definitely be happy and be ready to tap out, if my body even allows me to do that.
He has said on numerous occasions that he anticipates being sick of prep life and also calling it quits once he no longer feels the fire to compete. However, based on Chris being 27, showing zero signs of slowing down, and having few legitimate threats to his reign, it seems very likely that the Classic King will keep his throne until he chooses to relinquish it, and according to him, he's not going anywhere. What can we learn from the life of Chris Bumstead? If you're gonna do something, no matter what it is, do it with passion, do it with purpose, and do it because you love it, and let no obstacle get in your way in the process, and once you reach the mountaintop, never change. And as the cbum story is very far from being over, it's only right that we say, to be continued. I'm Large Kofi, thank you for watching.